I had an opportunity over the last weekend to check out a PSO2 New Genesis with the quote beta that just wrapped up in Japan, and I have some opinion to say about it as someone who ended up putting in a little over 20 hours into the beta itself over the technically I got 2.5 days that it was available to us. And today I'm going to discuss everything that I took away from the beta and my personal opinion as we move from PSO2 into New Genesis as we get closer and closer to the PSO New Genesis global beta, as well as the possibility of an open beta or maybe another closed beta coming at some point here soon before the end of 2021. And with that is what we're going to be discussing today. But if you're interested in seeing a first-hand experience of uncut gameplay of PSO2 New Genesis, I do have my full streaming schedule of that event up on YouTube right now. I will have a link in the cards above me to the playlist as well as in the description below. But before we hop into this, if you are new to the channel or if you one of the many that haven't hit that wonderful subscribe button, make sure you do that. Smash some like button, leave me some comment, let me know your guys' opinion of the New Genesis beta if you did check it out. And with that, let's go ahead and get into this and let's discuss my opinion of New Genesis. So the beta itself once again took place over the weekend and was exclusive to Japan, any to the point as someone who was invited into the beta who live in America ended up having to use a VPN to actually play it. And once that all got said and done, and I actually got into character creation, the character creation itself is pretty fantastic, to be honest, especially with the new ability for the bonus amount of attachment you can put on your character. And also it seems like you got a little more in-depthness being thrown in, especially now with a few more settings for your hands, since hand animations is very important SEGA in this, right along with a whole bunch of new facial ability such as a purple mouse, and as well as also animation that you can do with your tongue and whatnot. So they are adding a handful of new mechanics here, but with that being said though, it is very similar to what you have always seen in PSO2, which is not a bad thing because PSO2 character creator is fantastic, but the few things we have seen them add in is great, as well as having the ability of now using any real body type for your character. So in return, you can pretty much wear whatever you want, and especially that going to come in handy as we move over and bring over our fashion from PSO2 into New Genesis. So you no longer have to worry about your character being tied to a gender. You can pretty much wear any outfit you want, and also you can use the outfit from a bait PSO2 inside of New Genesis as well in the character creator. So pretty much take the character creator of PSO2, add more stuff to it and more preset to it, and there you have it. With that being said, in the beta itself, there is a little bit of an issue I noted, which is more of an irritation more so than anything, which is when you're going through like hairstyles or outfit, you will notice that PSO2 itself is kind of lacking in the visual quality in the preview screen. Not so much on your character, but in the selection of items you can pick, the pictures they are using, it's way more fuzzier and a little harder to make out what they are, or well, like the hair and clothes and whatnot in the preview is actually fantastic in New Genesis. So with that could be something that could get fixed as we move into this our beta, and with it using pretty much just standard graphic feel, which in return bring me to one of the discussion here, which is called the actual overlay and the UI of a PSO2 New Genesis. All the UI and stuff, if you someone who have been multiple times playing inside of PSO and got around some of the issues that come from just how menu heavy that PSO2 is, that is carrying over into New Genesis. It did get streamlined in a lot of ways, but the thing is, it's still a little clunky to get around some menus, and some stuff is barely in menus on top of menus. And also right now having no possibility of moving around any of the visual quality really. The only thing you can technically modify the size of is the preview of when you're attaching item to your character. You can make it bigger, but it's pretty much the same thing you have seen in PSO2 already. With that being said, hopefully some of the menu get worked out a little bit better, and honestly get a little more visual quality to it, because if it does work, it is extremely bland, but on the case of the menus being very similar to PSO2, at least for me anyway, someone who have spent almost 2,000 hours in bait PSO2, it made it very easy to actually play this, even if it is 100% in Japanese for the beta. But with that being said though, it is a few little parts of it that is ideally, hopefully will get fixed, such as certain menus overlapping on top of others, especially when it comes to your quest log and your announcement whenever you complete a quest will overlap and make it hard to see either one of them. And also, like I said, some menus are still very much buried in other menus, even if it is a little bit better. With that all being said, moving into the actual gameplay visual quality of it, the actual graphics of it is fantastic, but I did run into a little nitpick that I ended up finding out how to fix near the end of the beta, which is called just an over-the-top visual effect that comes into your character attacks and a distant particle effect that comes off of your character weapon for enemies in return. And as I was playing it, not only did I notice it to be very hard on the eye as I was streaming it all, which you will see in my chat if you watch my archives of my live stream, well, not only me, but other people in the chat started noticing very much heavy points of possibility of seizures happening here, right along with some headaches and other little knickknacks that could be happening. So in return, if you were sensitive to lights or flashing, it's something to keep an eye on. But with that being said though, I did end up finding a setting inside of the game to actually turn down that setting so it's not so over the top. So whenever they come out, if they don't dumb that down a little bit, there's a very high chance you might want to look into your settings and try to turn that stuff down and hopefully not have any emergency come from it. But outside of that little complaint of having it buried in a menu and literally turned up pretty much as high as it could get right out of the gate, is the actual visual of the environment itself, which is honestly really great. Is after playing it all the time, like going into New Genesis, I was expecting it to be like, okay, we're gonna have the same combat of PSO2, which we do have, which I will go into detail more so in a moment, and as well as like a Final Fantasy 14 style environment to run around in. But with that being said though, after actually playing it firsthand, and any if we did not get access to the full map by any means, we only had roughly about 4 areas on the whole map. It is way more in line with the monolith soft games such as like Xenoblade Chronicles, or any more so like Xenoblade Chronicle X, with levels having interlocking areas, well, especially in one area that is pretty much the beach, or you could look at like the seabed of PSO2, have a whole bunch of little corridors and caves that just connect to each other to make a very complex maze-like style of environment. So if you are familiar with the monolith soft game, you will feel very much at home in the way the levels are constructed and how they actually connect to each other. And any if you do get like lost or confused in some of the areas just because of how they are designed, you do have the ability of mobility that is second to none here, with your character being able to not only double jump but glide, as we have seen in many of the live streams or the dev streams we have seen. But actually playing it for hand, pretty much, if you can imagine it, more likely you can probably get on top of any environmental item or area that you can pretty much think of. You can go from the top of a mountain and literally jump and glide all the way into the city itself, or pretty much on the other side of the map. With that being said, the gliding is a little sluggish, but I do know that was something that was commented on in the last dev stream of them working on it, so we will see what come of that. But nonetheless, the ability to just get around and move fairly quickly is a extreme welcome. And speaking of moving quickly, talk about the combat here. The combat is a little slower. The combat itself is nowhere near as fast as what you have seen in PSO2 as is. And on top of that, at time of the beta at least, the combat itself does have some little tweaks that need to be made, mainly with animation cancel. For anyone who have played PSO2, you would know you can pretty much cancel out of any PA or any attack as you see fit. That's not really the case here, which in return why my favorite crack gunner ended up being not the best for me at the moment, mainly just because of how much of the game relying on animation lock and playing out full period of the animation itself. So when we turn, the combat itself can feel a little janky, and some of the movements, especially in combat, could feel very much like controlling a marionette. But with that being said though, this is something that was brought up during the last live stream or the dev stream they did, and they did talk about fixing it. But at the time of the beta, we do not have them fixes, and who knows how soon or how late them update might come. But the combat itself now, with your character not only having the classes that is available to them with Hunter, Fighter, Force, Tekka, Gunner, and Ranger, you also have the ability of subclasses. Check out that video about subclasses if you're interested in the details of that. But pretty much the subclasses now have been broken down into pretty much just add on to your character. Instead of having stats that will combine or roll depending on what classes you are using, now that stuff is gone, and now it pretty much your main class and subclass it pretty much broken into using the weapons of that class and the PA of that class, and in return let you choose do you want to play your subclass or main class at any point. So in return, I wouldn't say the subclass, more along the lines of now you can equip two classes at the same time and play them as either or, which is good, but at the same time, no more stats inside of PSO2 when it comes to subclasses. And then on top of that, to add to that any further, we do have the ability of combining two weapons together at any point, or which in return, by combining the weapons together, you can create a brand new weapon chain for say. So instead of having to have multiple weapons on your character and then changing it by changing your little weapon panel, now you can literally take two weapons and combine them, and in return you will make a new PA that will let you flip the weapon on the fly mid combo. So in return you can have your three PA slots be such as a hunter weapon, and then have your second three slots be your mage, and then you can easily go in between them as you see fit. So in return, adding any more customization to your character, and in return, by combining the weapons together, you will be able to use the PA that come with that weapon. So not only can you switch subclasses and classes on the fly, now you can also throw in two weapon types on each of them. So in return, you can play up to 4 weapon types on your character without really having to do much other than 2 of your slots for your weapon palette. So the main thing about combat though is pretty much a customization and letting you create the type of character you want to play and the weapons you want to play with, which is great. And then on top of that, with classes such as Force or Tekka, with them classes being a little more finicky as far as PSO2 related, especially with you having to constantly control your PP engagement and how much you have compared to casting spells or buffs. In PSO2 New Genesis, on the other hand, that's not really the case. Pretty much them classes is no longer really mage focused. Don't get me wrong. The main thing is, of course, building up attacks between magic spell or buffs or debuffs. But at the same time, when the time comes that you have to do melee to get your PP back, is way more reliable than it ever was in PSO2. And in return, the combos that you actually get by attacking with wands or maces is extremely satisfying. So in return, you feel more like a battle mage instead of just a mage, which once again could be good or bad depending on how you fall. Personally, I really do enjoy it because it actually makes them classes a little more funner to play and not so, I guess, tedious as I was in PSO2. And then the next main thing we need to talk about is called the crafting system. Is not only do you still have your weapon enhancing, your weapon leveling, you have, of course, attaching your PAs, and then on the other hand, when it comes to crafting food, is kind of like in PSO2, kind of afterthought in a lot of ways. Well, New Genesis put crafting, especially on the food, up front and in your face, because as you kill off wildlife or pick up random items off the trees, you can use them item to craft food and create recipes, but the recipes are totally up to you to do, because as you are adding and subtracting different ingredients, different buffs will be added and subtracted, and in return you can make custom recipes that can be saved in a book. So if you have the item, you can go ahead and make them, and in return they also take the place of, as of now, Elite from the beta anyway, seem to take the place of using tributos and EX stuff. Is now that stuff it all wrapped up into you crafting food and eating back at home. So once again, less items that you need to deal with and less item to remember to actually bring with you, since everything would just be wrapped up in it one system. And speaking of items you no longer really have to worry about when it comes to healing and reviving your teammate with tri-mates and moons, now these are being able to be picked up off of the field in battle, and you can always have them on hand and not really have an experience of forgetting to bring them on mission. Now you can just pick them up as you go, and in return you only have the two with moon and tri-mate, so no longer worrying about bringing multiple different variants of them, which also cut down on the inventory management that you will be doing. And then speaking of inventory management, the game might be just because of the beta. We will see how they go. But in the beta though, we did have access to 100 slots in our default bank or character slot. So in PSO2, you only have 50. That is double in a New Genesis, which is fantastic and more basic, always better. And then on top of that, when it comes to the loot of PSO2 New Genesis, it had very much been toned back, Elite for the beta anyway. In return now, instead of picking up items off the battlefield, pretty much what you would do is after you kill a monster or whatever you might be fighting, might be a wildlife or not, the items itself will automatically be deposited into your character. So you no longer have to worry about picking up stuff. The issue is that could come up is how that actually going to function as we get into rarity, or if the drop rate actually get higher. So we will see how that pans out, but pretty much at that point in the beta, it was no need to worry about setting up trying to make sure you get all your loot. It will instantly pop into your inventory or material storage or whatever kind of storage you have set up. And then we got to talk about the origin quests, which is the next bigger change here, which is of course now made up, instead of you taking the quest at a deck counter, and now the event will still be announced 15 minutes before the event happens. And what you will end up doing is, if you bring up your map, you will see where it located, and in return will appear somewhere on the map, and then you have to get over to the map. And from there, you will get a timer letting you know how much time it left before the event began. And then once it starts, all you have to do is pretty much hit a button to join, and the game will find you a party if you're not already in one. With that being said, I did have some issues of not being able to connect to the party, and then at one point just being dropped into an origin quest by myself. And it seemed like from my research, that wasn't uncommon. Once again, that could just be a beta thing, and hopefully will be fixed here soon for the global version and Elite, but we will see on that. But the origin quest is itself, if you are someone who were worrying about them not being nearly as over the top or epic as I have been, I will admit freely, I originally was worried about that, but after actually taking part in one, they are equally seeming to be on par with any origin quest that we have seen already in PSO2. But in the beta, we did have just one boss battle, and when you actually join the event, it will be instanced and teleport you out to take on the fight. And once the fight is done, you will be dropped back off into Central City to continue on your way. And then the last big content thing that got added in this is pretty much cocoons, which are pretty much standalone dungeon. Think of it similar to like shrines in the last Legend of Zelda game, where you will go in, you will have multiple side objectives, might be completed in a time limit, kill X many bosses, find some hidden item, whatever it might be. You will have a handful of them, and pretty much the point of it is get from point A to point B while completing the objectives. These sometimes will actually change from you just being in a battle arena. Some of them might be you fighting a boss, might be some doing like platforming challenges. They seemed very much all over the place as far as the beta is concerned. So if you're someone who get tired of one type of cocoon, you will have a different one with totally different gameplay tied to it. And these cocoons can be found just scattered across the map. And your mag itself, pretty much in the beta, and from my understanding leading into the bait game, is going to be more along the lines of pretty much helping you find the location, since some of them are out in the open and then others are hidden away for you to try to discover. So overall, the beta itself, any of the beta was extremely limited, and we only had a handful of quests. We only had one weapon type for each class, and we did have a level cap of 15, which in return wasn't really doable, since a lot of the enemies only went up to level 10, and in return to hit 15 would be way more grinding than I would willing to do. But overall though, the quests that I have seen that we ended up getting in the beta were pretty much the same thing we kind of expect. Well, it's just like, go mod your weapon, go do this, pretty much tutorial heavy quests, as well as some objectives that are tied to classes that just involve you going out killing X amount of enemy with said class and whatnot. The quests in the beta wasn't anything too exciting, nothing over the top. So yeah, we will see what's gonna happen when we get our hands on any more client orders as we move into the official release. But with that all being said, I highly enjoyed my time inside of PSO New Genesis, and in return, I personally can't wait to play more. Hopefully, we will get more as we move into some of the later beta into release. Finger crossed on that. PSO New Genesis is a different type of game. The only real connection, like, to bait PSO2 is pretty much the possibility of the combat still being very much Devil May Cry-ish, and depending on what classes you play, such as Force and Tekka, there is some changes that is happening there, but pretty much all the other classes pretty much feel pretty identical in a lot of ways to where they are inside of PSO2 right now. And in return, if you like Scion classes, some of the new stuff that did get added into your PAs, it very much feel like channeling your Scion classes, not only in mobility, but just the way some PAs operate. So yeah, not quite PSO2, since PSO2 feel way more like a Diablo clone with a Devil May Cry combat. Well, does it feel like Devil May Cry combat, but mainly the Scion classes meet a monolith soft game. You will know how the level design is set up. So overall, I am highly still excited for it. If I do know some players might not exactly be in love with it fully just because of how distant it operates, but deep down in the soul of it, a PSO3 in a lot of ways, but without the name. So that is just my opinion. My hopes are still high. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my coverage of it. That's going to be happening throughout the week, right along with all the streams I did. And if you was able to get your hands on it, or you got an opinion one way or another on a PSO2 New Genesis, let me know in the comment below. Make sure you do the like, favorite, subscribe. Also, don't forget, I do stream here on YouTube every Saturday and Sunday with PSO2 starting at 3 p.m. Central. And hopefully more beta coverage to come as we get more betas. So with that, and I will go ahead and see you all in the comments. To the end, everybody, if you haven't already, make sure you check out the videos here, since some of that stuff might be interesting to you. Also, a big thank you to all my supporters over on patreon.com/Maconn. You can find the link in the description, and I like to give a call out to Kyle Blower. I probably mispronounced your last name. Sorry, but thank you all for your support, and I will see you all in the comments indeed. This time, actually in the comments. Bye.